Hi, welcome to Book Club. I'm C.M. Vasquez, author of The Birdcage Society Falling, the first in an ongoing psychological mystery series. Today I'm going to be giving you my impressions of Chapter 4 of Darkly Dreaming Dexter. This chapter starts off with Dexter taking his boat out so he can sort through his feelings, basically. But he also says the phrase, "me feeling," what a concept. So he says in one chapter that he doesn't feel anything, then in another admits to feeling something. So this is something that we talked about previously, but is it that he can't feel, or is it just so rare of an occurrence that he's caught off guard when he is actually feeling something? So he idles his boat out into the canal in sort of a Zen state, says that he's thinking nothing. Now, I envy this tremendously because my mind is always going, and I wish that I could just flip it off like it's a light switch. So that's fun. But when his brain turns back on, his thoughts move toward the remains of the hooker in garbage bags, and how all the parts were neat and cleanly cut into 3 pieces, except for one. LaGuerta thinks that the killer was interrupted, and that's why there are only 2 cuts on one of the body parts. But Dexter says that doesn't make any sense because of how meticulous the presentation was. He says that police work tends to be routine and they look for details that fit into patterns. But if the pattern is new, they're completely lost. But since Dexter isn't bogged down by routine, it's obvious to him that the killer is unsatisfied, bored even. This killer is trying to express something but can't quite get there. And Dexter refers to him as a cold, careful monster, and that he's absolutely fascinated by him. And I can definitely see how learning about somebody who is similar to you may help you learn about yourself. And I think that may be why Dexter is so drawn to this killer. Dexter thinks about the choices that he has in front of him when it comes to this murderer. He can either help Deborah catch the killer, which he's confident that he could do. He could save the killer for himself, or, and this definitely feels like the thought from his dark passenger, he thinks, do I even want him to stop? This thought actually causes Dexter to dip into his past and think about how Harry, his foster father, taught him to use his differences constructively. He thinks back to when he was 14. He was out camping with Harry, and Harry actually brings him out to this site specifically so he can confront Dexter. And he tells Dexter that he knows that Dexter is different. And he knows what Dexter did to the neighbor's dog. Which, makes sense because psychopaths who end up being killers later on, it's often described that they start off on small animals. So that makes sense. Harry found the grave of the neighbor's dog, but inside the grave there were also bones from previous animals that Dexter had done his work on. He questions Dexter on why Dexter feels the need to kill things, and I was hoping that we as readers would get a scene where Harry discovers the darker urges that Dexter has, and I love a good flashback, so I was really excited when this scene started in the chapter. Dexter tells Harry that if there's something inside of him. It's as if the thing inside of him is watching, laughing, and making killing seem like a good idea. Of course, we know that Dexter comes to refer to this something as the Dark Passenger later on. But after taking in what Dexter has said, he doesn't condemn Dexter. He doesn't look at him in any sort of disappointed way, or like he despises him, like he's disgusted by him. He takes it in, and he's silent. He acknowledges what Dexter is saying, and he kind of processes everything that Dexter has said. After this, he tells Dexter that now they need to get him squared away. And right before he tells Dexter his plan, he says the phrase, "It's like this." And I want to read the very last part of this paragraph where he utters this phrase, because I absolutely love the very last line in this paragraph. So it says, "It's like this," he says. I listen carefully. "This is what Harry says when he's giving you a higher order truth. When he showed me how to throw a curveball and how to throw a left hook. It's like this," he would say. And it always was, just like that. I am in love with that last line. I think that it's very beautifully written, but also conveys so much about how Dexter views his father. This sentence tells me that Dexter respects Harry, trusts him, and looks up to him. He describes Harry as tough love with blue eyes. If I didn't know any better, I'd say that Dexter admired his father, maybe even loved him. But wait, he doesn't feel anything, right? He does say if only he was capable of love, he would have loved Harry. But I think even this early on in the book, most of us are in agreement that Dexter is in denial about his ability to feel. And I think it might become a bit comical sometimes later in the story as Dexter is figuring out his own emotions. And I hope we kind of get to see why, because I don't know if he's been struggling with these feelings that he has his entire life, or if there was a catalyst that triggered him into maybe acknowledging more of his feelings recently, or processing them. So we'll see about that. But Harry asks Dexter if he remembers what happened before Harry took him in. Dexter was 3 years old at the time, and he says that he doesn't remember anything at all. And what happened to Dexter is actually, it's bad. It's so bad that Harry says no one should have to remember that. And although he doesn't elaborate on exactly what happened, he does say that whatever it was did things to Dexter to make him what he is. That whatever is making Dexter need to kill is so strong that Dexter can't resist it. But they can channel it and control it by choosing who to kill. Because in the words of Harry, there are plenty of people who deserve it. So Harry taught Dexter how to be a functional killer, which, because of his background as a cop, was easy enough. Among the things that he taught him was to be absolutely sure that those he killed deserved it, but also to build a careful life so he could be above suspicion. Harry also taught him to avoid emotional involvement because it could lead to mistakes. But knowing all of this, Dexter was still contemplating going after the killer. And just letting him be, because of a connection that he feels he has with the killer. So in this turmoil that he had, and he mentions it as well, he comes to the conclusion that he has an emotional involvement. And because of this realization that he has, he quickly realizes that this violates the code of Harry. And the chapter ends with Dexter making the firm decision to help Deb. So, tell me what you think. Do you agree with Harry's methods to protect his son? To channel Dexter's hunger into something productive? What would you do if your child exhibited these kinds of symptoms and behaviors? Let me know in the comments, and join me on Wednesday for Chapter 5. See you next time.